Howdy, and welcome to the aggieTEACH Momentum podcast, brought to you by the aggieTEACH Arts and Sciences program at Texas A&M University. I'm your host, Kenrick Davies, former high school physics and astronomy teacher and current program coordinator for aggieTEACH Arts and Sciences. This podcast is meant to provide a little more insight and information to those seeking a secondary content teacher certification in Texas. We aim to provide episodes that help pre-service educators on the path to certification, as well as leverage the experience of myself and other guest speakers to support teachers in their first few years in the classroom. Today's topic is educational associations or organizations, and we have a guest in the studio with us today. Please welcome aggieTEACH alum Quinn McCall, who now works for TCTA, that's the Texas Classroom Teachers Association, as the legislative liaison. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we can just get right into it. Quinn, can you tell us a little bit about your history in education and how you ended up with TCTA?
Sure. So I wandered over to Texas A&M, as many of us. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do when I got there, and I got advice that you should probably major in your favorite subject in high school, and that led the right path. Mine was math, so I majored in math, was taking courses. During one of my courses, we read an essay called A Mathman's Lament. It was a satirical essay about how math education, particularly in the United States, is almost designed to make people not like math. And it resonates with me so much because a lot of times when I told people I was a major, the first thing they told me was how much they hated math. I don't know what happens with majors, but it was so pervasive that I got motivated to find a way to solve this problem. And I thought the most direct way to do that was to become a math teacher myself.
I experienced that as a former physics teacher. You know, everyone hated physics. I think that was the bane child of math and science. So
It's right. Physics is just a math class in disguise, in my opinion. Much of your success in physics is how good you are at math.
yeah.
Uh,
So
so,
how'd you end up getting into TCTA?
yeah, so I was a teacher in Aldine for 6 years. That is in North Houston, kind of near the George Bush Airport. Is a top district. So definitely a lot of struggles there. But I loved it. Loved the people I worked with. Loved the kids. There were a few kids who made me want to pour out, but that's not unique to Aldine ISD.
Yeah.
Find um, I'd always kind of had policy on the brain though, and that does stem from my entry into teaching. So when the pandemic started, we had a lot of hard transitions there, and I realized much joy in teaching was the people that I worked with. And a lot of these exceptional leaders that I spent the past 6 years with, I started looking around and they had gone off to their schools or their lines of work. And I thought it'd be a good time for me to pursue a mastery and actually moves towards making education policy.
TCTA is the Texas Classroom Teachers Association, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, there's other organizations out there. You have ATPE, which is the Association for Texas Professional Educators. So, what exactly do these organizations do for teachers in Texas? And along with that, why is it a good idea for teachers to be a part of something like this?
So the services we provide it's what I would call professional insurance. You have access to attorneys who can help you with any job issues. And I know that a lot of people, when you hear attorney, you're thinking like there's a lawsuit involved or, the sky is falling. And that is, we can certainly help with that. But there are a lot of day-to-day things that people call about, or they just have a question because they're being asked to do something and they're not necessarily sure if that's part of their job. And they want to have someone kind of in their corner to give them a source of the law, I suppose. The other thing we do is that we have law teams who will go to the Capitol and try to advocate for better laws for teachers. We also lobby general education things. For example, the last legislative session, there was a big push to create a statewide voucher program. And while that's not really a teacher's issue, it would be so earth-shifting for education as a whole that we also lobbied against.
So, this association is basically representing the rights and the best interest of teachers in the state of Texas. And
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
I guess something I would say too is like a big part of being a member of something like TCTA, you are a public employee, and being a public employee comes with a lot more rights than being a private employee does. When most people think of being in a job, it's like you get hired, you get fired. That's it.
Hmm.
But if you're a public employee, there's so many other things. You have due process, you have all this, and these aren't even things that you really think about when you're starting off as a teacher. If you're coming out of A&M, you're 22 years old. You've probably finished a semester of student teaching or a teacher residency, and you are ready to focus on your lessons and your classroom management, all that. And so all other professional related things, your contracts, all that, those are not even in your head at all.
TCTA is responsible for protecting our, job essentially, right? Our
Yeah.
ability to do the profession. So being a member of TCTA or ATPE or any of the associations is really just about supporting education as a profession.
It's more that you have all these rights that you may not be able to, if something happens, you can call us and we can provide absolutely uh, on what the best course of action is for whatever situation you have.
So what is your most memorable interaction with a TCTA member? How were you able to help them?
So the usual process of anyone can call about just about anything. You'll talk to our reception. She'll decide we need to speak to an attorney, which is usually the case. Sometimes people do a technical question. They don't necessarily need to speak to an attorney. So we had someone who called maybe about a month ago, and she had a lot of questions about her CPE hours. So for those of you who are, those are continuing professional education hours.
Mhm.
You'll probably go through some kind of on this your pre-service and in-service stuff before the school year starts, and they will say a bunch of stuff about CPE very quickly, most of which you will likely forget. Uh, I confess that I probably forgot when I was here as well.
Yeah.
But uh, every 5 years, you need to 150 years of continuing professional education hours. Um, for those of you who are skilled at math, that is 30 hours per year. And a lot of the things you do during your in-service days will count as those CPE hours. So you don't necessarily have to go out and hunt down 150 hours on your own. That can be a lot. So this person was not actively teaching. She wanted to maintain her certification, and she had a lot of questions on how to get those hours, where in places to do them. There's also another requirement that a quarter of those hours to be within a certain set of topics. She had some questions about how you determine that they those topics. I walked her through it. She didn't know where to save them, and I said you can certificates. So walked her through the whole thing of CPE hours. TCTA also got a slight technical edit to the 25% requirement that one listed to where if you do more that are in that list of topics, it counts towards your one. Previously, you were capped at exactly 25% there. And that's something that, we had a few members call about. They were frustrated, and we said, what? Next time, we'll go see if we can change something. But all done, we have professional development on the TCTA website. I directed her to some free professional development on the DEA site. And at the end, she was very, and she said, young man, if you see jewels in that crown upon your head, know that God put for helping me. And I thought that was the highest praise I could receive.
And really, you're just there to help her understand what is required of her as an educator. Yeah, on the pre-service side, as we're helping out students coming through our program, that's one of the biggest questions that I've gotten here recently is just how often do I have to renew my certificate? How long does it last, and what do I need to do for that? And I certainly remember as a teacher that it was never an issue. I thought of getting those
Hmm.
150 hours. It was just a matter of whether or not I could keep track of them or if I had some mechanism to keep track of it. So I'm glad that you have information available, easily available to your members, to TCT members to help out with that. So there's a different spin to educational associations as well. So I'm going to ask you a question. Were you ever part of a content-based educational association when you were a teacher? You were math, right? So were you ever part of a math teacher organization?
So I did sign up for NCTM, which it's really matches the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. They have tons of lesson ideas, online textbooks. They do huge conferences. Um, there's they do stuff all over the nation, really. As far as listening to conferences, though, I actually did attend CAMPS, which is the Conference for Advancement of Math. You will learn in education there are many acronyms, and
Yep.
you need some key,
Alphabet soup.
certainly. I went to CAMPS in San Antonio, and that one was more, I would kind of qualify it as like a bunch of professional development all at once. And anybody really could sign up to get. So if you have something cool you're doing in your school district, you could sign up and say, "Hey, I want to go this thing I'm doing in my district with my math classes," and show it to everybody.
Mhm.
Uh, saw a lot of those, got some really great ideas there, and just kind of get exposure to more math teachers instead of being in your own little bubble at your campus, and do a lot for getting the creative juices flowing and seeing what works.
Yeah, so you mentioned kind of two levels there. You have a state association or a state conference, and you have the national. Did you ever get to go to the national conference for NCTM?
Not, fortunately.
Yeah.
Our district did send us places occasionally. It was once in a while. So I think when they had the choice of us driving ourselves to Antonio or flying somewhere else,
Or-
they said, "We'll get you a hotel in San Antonio."
Yeah. No, I get that. And especially nowadays, districts are even more strapped for professional development money. They'd rather do it in-house rather than sending away. So yeah, I can talk a little bit about my experience as a science teacher. So just like you mentioned, state level, national level, there is a state Science Teachers Association of Texas, or STAT, that puts on a conference every year. That's called CAST. That's the Conference for the Advancement of Science Teaching. I think they mirror each other in terms of locations. So like wherever CAST is, CAMP is going to be there the next summer. And I was one of those teachers that you talked about. I was one of those teachers that whenever I was in the classroom, probably from year three or so, I started to go to CAST and I started to present what I was doing in the classroom. I didn't really think that I had anything groundbreaking, but it was just I love to try things new. I love to try something different every year. I didn't want to do the same thing every single year. So I would go to cast and I'd present my stuff, and it's all over the state. I absolutely loved it. And going through the years, so I presented at cast every single year for the rest of my career, and ended up getting so involved with that organization that I ended up being the president for the Science Teachers Association of Texas for last academic year, for the 23-24 academic year. So um, I would say that that was probably the best professional development that I could get as a teacher, was to go to these conferences, to present what I knew, to get ideas from other people, and just learn from everybody, because these conferences are just so awesome to be surrounded by other science teachers, other teachers that are just like you and have all the cool ideas and tips and tricks. I just recently got back from NCSM, which I believe stands for the National Conference for the Support of Mathematics, which is right in front of
Ah,
NCTM. Yeah, this is an organization for math coaches. So it's like the people who support math teachers. So that was really interesting. I've learned through my experience of associations that there's an association for everything. So it's like there's an association for associations. So like when I think about being a part of my I guess career as an educator, educational associations were pivotal in my opinion. They were the ones that these associations were the ones that helped me where I needed it, whether it was a content. So I would go to STAT, I would go to CAST and get help with my content, or helping me with my career. I have TCTA on the other side and helping me understand what I absolutely had to do for my job. I feel like we should impress upon this next generation of teachers how important it is to be a part of your profession, and that means being a part of these educational associations, whether it's content or professional.
that's a big part of what we're looking forward to in the next legislative session is I'll call it the re-professionalization of teaching because in a lot of people who have been villainizing teachers and public education generally. In Texas specifically, there is a growing number of uncertified teachers,
Mm,
and they're happy to be a teacher and be uncertified, but they usually were coupled with a rope to get certified a certain amount of time, and those
mhm,
requirements don't exist anymore. So it's critical. The certified teachers set the gold standard for what good teaching is by going to these kinds of conferences, honing their craft and also maintaining the utmost professionalism as well.
Yeah. And I think, advocating is also part of that, right? I mean, you learn about your craft, you do the best that you can in the classroom, but then you also advocate for betterment of your profession, right? You advocate for better treatment, better, societal views. And that's what TCTA can help with doing, right? I mean, you're
Mhm.
part of that association, and your membership allows TCTA go to advocate on your behalf to make sure that you are able to do what you're supposed to be doing.
And we have events, members, where we will take you to the Capitol. We can go with you to talk to your lawmakers. If there are certain kind of demonstrations that you might want to in Austin, we can go there with you and show you the ropes, and make you more comfortable at the Capitol if you want to take it upon yourself, talk to your representatives.
That's great. Yeah. I think there's a certain level of like hesitation. You're like, oh, well, I'm just a lowly teacher. What would I be doing at the Capitol? But having TCTA, have my back would be huge, I think. So that's awesome that y'all do that.
You'd be surprised how powerful anecdotal evidence is with state representative.
Yeah. So, okay. So it kind of closing up here. So if you had one piece of advice to give a new teacher entering the field soon, what would it be?
You need to take care of yourself too. Um, and for one of the first days of student teaching, I, did the whole day. All that. I was on my feet, everything, and I went home. And I was pretty close. I was teaching at A&M Consolidated, and I lived like maybe fucks away. I actually walked. So I walked home. It was maybe 3:30, 3:05 when I got home, and I face planted on my bed, and one of my roommates woke me up at 9:30. You know what happened? I was just like, I'm gonna lay down for a second. Um, Teaching physically taxing job. It is an emotionally taxing job. It takes a lot of mental focus and taking care of yourself. Every one of those aspects is just as important as preparing the perfect lesson, delivering it in the right way. Because if you want to be in it for the long haul, I know that it sounds a little selfish, but you are the number one person to take care of. And if you take yourself, it'll be much easier to take care of those kids.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think I probably shared the same experience after my student teaching started, just going home and just being physically just sitting there, just like exhausted and not wanting to move. But yeah, I it probably took me a couple of years in the teaching field before I realized that I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't be up at school for 11 hours a day and then go home and get a few hours rest and do it all over again. So I wholeheartedly agree with that piece of advice to take care of yourself. If listeners want to learn more about TCTA, where could they find you online?
So it is 2024. We do have a web. It is tcta.org. Very easy. We are an organization that recommends teachers, librarians, counselors, no administrator like that. So you know that we're just on the teachers. If you're old school, you can also call us. We do have people who call and they say they want to sign up over the phone. Our number is 888 TCTA.
Before we end today, I want to make sure that we have a chance to talk about all the different state associations that our students and future teachers may want to be a part of. We've already mentioned STAT, the Science Teachers Association of Texas, as well as CAMPT, the Conference for the Advancement of Math Teaching. If you're in science, there's several organizations such as TSAAPT, that's the Texas section of the American Association of Physics Teachers, TABT, Texas Association of Biology Teachers. There's ACT2, which is the Association of Chemistry Teachers of Texas. There is TAEE, which is the Texas Association of Environmental Educators. Outside of science, there's also TCT-ELA, that's the Texas Council of Teachers of English Language Arts, and the Texas Council for the Social Studies. So there is an association for pretty much any content area. And that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Quinn, for being a guest today. The aggieTEACH Momentum podcast drops every 2 weeks, so make sure that you are looking for the next episode on Spotify or linked on the aggieTEACH Arts and Sciences website. For more information, you can visit our program website at aggieteachartsci.tamu.edu. That is aggieTEACH, ARTSCI.tamu.edu. Thanks and gig 'em.
Thanks for having me, Kenrick.